Hello all my Kenvians, Papa Ken here, and welcome to episode 2 of Discovering Once Upon a Time. I am just about to get into episode 2, titled The Thing You Love Most, and honestly, after the first episode alone, if you watched the previous Discovering reactions / review, I'm definitely ready to find out what this is all about, figure out how this is going to evolve from here, and see if any of my guesses / theories, or theory, I suppose, will come to fruition. So, let's get right into it with The Thing You Love Most. And I apologize for any coughs or sniffles. I have allergies right now.
There is a town in Maine.
In scene from the last episode. Boom, got it.
What?
So it seems like everybody's kind of surprised that the clock is actually working.
That's for Henry. Yeah, I'm starting to think you're right about that.
Wow.
It's time for you to go. Or what?
Wow.
Don't underestimate me, Miss Swan. You have no idea what I'm capable of.
But does she know what she's capable of?
I shall destroy your happiness. About the same age you were when that sleeping beauty got the best of you, my dear Maleficent.
That's Maleficent?
As you will too. Hopefully. Enough games. You know why I'm here. Yeah, you really unleashed something there.
Jeez.
I gotta go, but I'll find you later and we can get started.
Between the
I knew
episodes,
you'd believe me. I never said I did.
His-
Why else would you be here?
his acting does seem to have improved a bit, actually, just between
Good to
episodes.
see his smile back. I didn't do it.
That's a bit extreme.
What the hell are you doing?
Picking apples.
Good question.
You're out of your mind.
No, you are if you think a shoddy frame job's enough to scare me off. You're gonna have to do better than that.
Come after me one more time, I'm coming back for the rest of this tree. Because, sister, you have no idea what I am capable of.
Wow.
What happened? Did you get your answer? What's going
He
on?
appears in any mirror?
Your Majesty? Your Majesty!
That's weird.
I think you're right. I can be happy. Just not here. I'm sorry.
Okay. She went from 1 to Mach 5 really quick there.
I love you, Daddy.
Henry. Oh! Oh my god.
I would say you think you know exactly who she is. Not really, what's been going?
Tell me what you know about her.
How much do they know?
I'm not going to answer you, dear. So I suggest you excuse me. Please.
Okay. Let's stop her right there. Okay. No, I wanted to pause it. There we go. Okay. Oh, this is an interesting one. Especially at the end. Well, let's get right into it with my favorite parts about this episode. And I might have left out a few, but it's because honestly, especially near the end, I got really wrapped up in it. But I guess some of the stuff that I wrote down here actually kind of reflects what happened later in the episode as well. But my first favorite is the exchange, or like the initial exchange between Emma and the mayor, or Regina. When Regina came to her hotel room with a basket of apples. That was... I mean, knowing what the apple symbolizes with the evil queen herself, I mean, that's just one of the darkest threats that, you know, Emma could get, whether Regina knows it or not. It's like that exchange was really good, really foreboding, and just really well done. Like, it was just an example of excellent acting in this episode, I think. My second favorite part about this episode was seeing the evil queen's true evil. And even though we do see a glimmer, like the slightest glimmer of the evil queen's loving side, like a glimmer of perhaps light in her dark soul with her father, well, we know what happens afterward, just seeing the true evil of her. Like, whenever there were the scenes with, you know, I'm trying to remember the correct terms here because it was told to me. I think it's the land of magic. If I'm getting it wrong, I apologize. But whenever we see the evil queen there, like, she's just very dark and foreboding, and you believe she's going to murder you. Like, she has no qualms about just taking you out, except for her father. So, we definitely get to see the true dark evil side of her. But I was interested, surprised that in the end we actually did get to see that lighter side of her. So that actually just increases why that's one of my favorite aspects of this episode. And moving on to my third favorite, the contrast between Regina and the evil queen. Now, both of them are portrayed to be just these very ruthless, calculating, some might consider evil people. But with Regina, there's a much more human element to her that shines through a lot more so in the land without magic than it does when she's the evil queen. Because again, we get to see that glimmer of love, of light in her soul when she is the brain. when she's the evil queen with her father. But then especially when we find out the connection with her father, Henry, and then Henry of the present, I don't know, it's just, I love that contrast, and I really hope that the show builds upon that more as the show goes on. Given what I could only assume is the overall style of the show, that will probably continue throughout its run. I don't know exactly. I'm looking forward to finding out more about her and seeing if there are more layers to her, even as just like the pure villain, as the bad guy in the land of magic. So yeah, there you go. Now, my fourth and final favorite part of this episode has to be the scenes with the evil queen / Regina and Rumpelstiltskin. When I originally wrote it down, it was during the scene where the evil queen goes to see Rumpelstiltskin and find out what she needs to do to enact the curse. But then it was only like that final scene with Mr. Gold and Regina was so good and so dark and creepy, and just this beautifully dark mirror of that scene. And we see one of Rumpelstiltskin's terms come to fruition. She has to obey whenever he says please. And, I don't know, I'm looking forward to more scenes, exchanges between them. We may not see more between the Evil Queen and Rumpelstiltskin, again, of the Land of Magic, but to see more between Mr. Gold and Regina, I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. And honestly, that scene only really sort of confirmed my idea that maybe Rumpelstiltskin / Big Bad is the real bad guy here. Like, maybe he's the one in charge. It's like Regina is evil, but well-meaning, because she really does believe that she's doing this to protect her son. That's what she seems to truly believe. Whereas Rumpelstiltskin / Mr. Gold, I can't tell if he remembers or not. There's that, especially in his dialogue and what he says, it really does seem that he remembers something, that he seems to remember what came before. Whereas Regina, it seems like she might have some faint idea. She might have some inclination of what her past life was, but doesn't seem to have any true memories of it. I honestly, I want to watch the next episode right now, and I may go ahead and do that just to see if that is expanded on any more. I really, 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 really do. But, okay, so those are my favorite parts of this episode. And there were so many other really good aspects, including the fact that I honestly think that between episodes, the kid that plays Henry, like, his acting skills did increase a little bit. Now, it's still not finely polished. I mean, you can tell that this is, if not his first, definitely one of his first roles as an actor. But they did get him to emote more. You can hear and see more personality showing through, especially when he's talking to Emma. Some of it is still kind of bland, I think, but overall it does seem like, again, just in the span of those 2 episodes, that he is getting a little bit better. At least that's my take on it. But moving on from there, I do have a few annoyances with this episode. And, well, I mean, they're annoyances, so obviously they're personal for me, but interested to see what you all think of them. The first of which is Maleficent's design, or just the way that her character is portrayed. I don't know. I don't really remember if I've seen any images of, like, the classic fairy tale Maleficent. The one that stands out the most is obviously from the Disney movie. But in my opinion, the Evil Queen is actually a better image of Maleficent than Maleficent in this show seems to be. Again, just my opinion, but when I think Maleficent, I don't think, like, you know, blonde, long, curly hair. It's like she did have, like, the little crown thing, but even that was a bit underwhelming, I suppose. But yeah, I just overall didn't really care for Maleficent's portrayal. I feel like they should have gone with maybe a different evil entity from other shows. Like, honestly, and I thought this, but when, in the short-lived battle between Maleficent and the Evil Queen, like, the image that Maleficent gave off was more of that of a witch. And I can't remember exactly, but when it came to Rapunzel, well, I mean, in the recent Disney movie, obviously, it was Mother Gothel, I think it was. But I think in the original fairy tale, it was a witch that took Rapunzel. Again, could be wrong, but that's what I think is right. And I feel like had they gone in that direction, maybe it would have made more sense. Because again, just because of the popular image that we have of Maleficent isn't at all what we really got here. But again, that's just my personal gripe with it. I could be way off base there. Let me know your thoughts. But my second annoyance, and this one I will admit is definitely a nitpick, but I did find it strange that when the evil queen returned to her castle and we see the face of the mirror, who I can't remember the character's name in The Land Without Magic, like, you know, the guy from the newspaper, essentially. I found it strange that the face appeared on basically any of the mirrors. It's not just the mirror. It's not the mirror on the wall. It's any of the mirrors, or seemingly any of the reflective surfaces in the castle. I found that really strange. Honestly, I just didn't really care for it. I feel like when it's, you know, the character is mirror on the wall, it's part of that one mirror. Unless maybe, since it was relatively small, maybe everything it appeared in are pieces of the original larger mirror. I don't know, just kind of speculating at this point, but yeah, I just didn't really care for that. But again, those are my favorite and my favorite parts of the episode, as well as my annoyances. Please do let me know any that you have in the comments down below. Now, moving on from there, I do have a quote, and I think in the future I may sort of like cut between watching and then doing the review so I can find like quotes from the episode that are kept online. But the one line that really did stand out the most to me was after Emma Swan cut down the branch of Regina's tree, and you know, they got face to face, and I feel like Regina said something earlier about, you know, seeing what she's capable of, or Emma didn't know what she was capable of. And the line that stood out to me was when Emma was in Regina's face and said, "Because, sister, you have no idea what I am capable of." Just the way that was said and the way the actor just executed everything physically, just like the stare going on, it was perfect. It was so well done, and I love that because it really shows, you know, obviously the contrast between the two characters, but also that Emma is clearly capable of stepping up and doing what apparently she needs to do in order to break the curse. She may not know it yet, but in that line, like, you can hear the determination. And I really, really love that. But as far as songs go, again, it's hard to really pick out anything in particular, but the music that played during that final scene, the final exchange between Regina and Mr. Gold, that music it sent chills up my spine. So I would definitely have to say that, you know, whatever song that may be, that has to be the song of the episode, by far. Now, as for questions, who is the cop? Who is the officer? I have a theory about who it might be, but it's entirely based on an idea I have from the Fables comic books that I've read. Well, and I guess the video game that the Telltale has out. But, okay, so my question is, who is the officer and where did he come from? Which I do hope we see at some point down the line. But my theory / complete guess is that the officer is Big Bad Wolf. And again, that guess is entirely based on reading the Fables comic books, in which the Big Bad Wolf plays the sheriff. So yeah, that's entirely that. And that's not really spoilers either. The comics have been out for a while, so if anyone says spoilers, sorry. But other than that, like, my other big question is, well, I guess it kind of expands on maybe what my question or theory was from the previous episode, but I feel like all of the characters have just the slightest inclination of their past life before the curse brought them to the land without magic. Again, I'm sorry if I'm getting the name wrong. Like, all of them have the slightest inclination, but none or very few of them have anything that really resembles a memory. And I think the only ones that really have that possibility of a memory at this point would be Regina and Rumpelstiltskin. Rumpelstiltskin, I think, of any of them, has to be the one with the most possibility of retaining some sort of memory. Because clearly the curse came from him, so it makes sense that he maybe has a loophole in there for himself. I don't know. But then with Regina, she goes back and forth of seemingly knowing something, and then what Rumpelstiltskin said to her, or I'm sorry, what Mr. Gold said to her is that you know who she is. Or, paraphrasing obviously, but something along those lines. And the expression that Regina gave, it was this sort of just being shocked. I was going to say some sort of recollection, but not really. Just shock, really. So yeah, again, between all of the characters, I think those two are the ones that have any actual memories, whereas everyone else is like Snow White / Mary, thought she knew Emma the moment she met her. So it's like not any actual memories, just, you know, a kind of serendipity, if you will. So yeah, that's all. That's really all my thoughts on this episode overall, other than I really liked it. The story is really ramping up, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. I want to see if this next episode might concentrate on Mr. Gold at all. I want to see what happens between Regina and Emma. I want to find out more. So yeah, that's all for this episode, everyone. Thank you for joining me for The Thing You Love Most. And coming up next, we will have the episode Snow Falls. And I've been told that the descriptions get slowly and slowly more spoilery, so I'm not going to read the descriptions going forward. But yes, the next episode will be Snow Falls, so obviously that implies we'll probably have some focus on Mary / Snow White. But alright, everyone, have a great day, and I will see you next time for the next Discovering Once Upon a Time. Until then, Allons-y.